Come here. Are you smelling this? Why does that smell like a Christmas tree? I don't know if it's like the burner or what. Like, you know what it is? It's this burning. Oh my God. Hello everybody, Vaughn here. Happy Thanksgiving. I am truly so excited. Thanksgiving is the best holiday, obviously, because it centers around food. I am here today to show you the 6 pies that I've been working on for you all for Thanksgiving. Around March or April of this year, I was basically given the task of thinking about pies that harken those flavors of Thanksgiving, but are also pies for the new era. I think the best thing about pie is that it is shareable. We're gonna make a hell of a lot of pies today, so I figured there would be nothing better than to celebrate in the spirit of Thanksgiving than with a Pie-Stravaganza. I've invited some pals here to the studio at the end of the day today, so we gotta work quickly, but we're gonna all enjoy pie, pop a little champers, and gonna get some honest feedback. And without further ado, the pies. So I have a confession. I really never used to like to make pie. I think it was because pie always was one of those things that like turned out differently for me every single time, and I'm a little bit of a perfectionist. But as I got to like know pie better, we became really good pals. And I think it all started when I figured out a really good recipe for pie dough. So it starts obviously with your all-purpose flour, 2 teaspoons of salt, which is a good amount of salt, but this does make 2 rounds of dough. The sugar, it doesn't really impart that much sweetness, but it really does help with the browning. You kind of want to have everything ready at your disposal before you get going. I'm gonna fill this up to the 1/2 cup and then put enough ice to get it to 2/3 cup. All right, the last thing is apple cider vinegar. Pie dough in its like purest form is something that should be tender and flaky. How you do that is through a range of sizes of butter, because the smaller pieces of butter promote that tenderness, but then the bigger pieces steam up in the oven a little bit from its moisture and create the flaky layers. So I'm gonna start to just coat all those pieces of butter in the flour. I'm creating these like tiny flakes, and I'm getting that nice variance. You can see like I've got small pieces there, and then I've got like some of these bigger flakes that will continue to kind of break down a little bit. So I'm gonna make a little bit of a well in the center, but I'm gonna just start by adding the 1/2 cup. You want the option of adding more, but you can't really take it away once you add it. Work that water and vinegar mixture into the dough like this with a fork, and then I'll just take this tablespoon and kind of start to hydrate some of those drier spots that I see. And now is when I can go in with my hands. And it doesn't stick together when I clump it, but you can see like the indentation of my hands. Turn it onto my work surface, bring it together here. I kind of pat the dough into a square-ish rectangle. I'm gonna divide this in half. This is basically going to be our 2 rounds of dough. I'm gonna go 1 step further and divide it into quarters. And it's gonna fall apart at this point. That is totally okay. 1 on top of that, and 1 on top of that. I have a little bit of flour left over on the surface, which is good. Flatten it out just with the heel of my hand. I'm going to divide this one into quarters. So then I stack all 4 of these on top of one another. And this is kind of like how Grandma used to make biscuits. Like you can already see those layers starting to form. Flatten it out there. We were doing our Thanksgiving video with Claire Saffitz last year. She like rolled it in the plastic. That's like such a smart tip. So that's bringing the dough together without like working it super much. corners in. I'm just gonna try to make it as much of a circle as I possibly can, which will make it really easy for me to roll out later. So I got my 2 rounds of pie dough ready to go in the fridge for at least a couple hours. Luckily, we have a swap that we made yesterday. I'm gonna show y'all how to roll this out. You probably want it to sit out for a few minutes just to like start to come to room temperature, but the big thing is you don't want it to get warm. You can start it by wrapping it a little bit. This starts the process of flattening it out, and it's gonna also kind of help you prevent it from cracking. And I'm doing those quarter turns to just try to maintain that shape. I've already beaten it to high heavens, so I'm going to start in the middle and work my way out, applying even pressure down. A quarter turn. And if you get cracking or whatever, it's fine. You know, you can kind of work it back into the general shape that you want. So you just keep it moving, keep it moving. Basically, what you're looking for is a 12-inch round. You know, you can use a ruler, you can kind of eyeball it. So this is why I like the tapered one, because I can tell that my edge is a little thick over there. So what I do is I always just fold it in half. I can line it right up with the middle. Just very gently press it into my corners. It also just kind of helps it maintain its shape a little bit better. I definitely want to make sure that I don't have too much overhang, because I'm going to crimp these edges, but I don't want it to be too thick. I'm just going to leave 1/2 inch, 1/4 inch overhang here. I don't have much of overhang, so sometimes what I do is I'll just take like a little bit of dough and sneak it under. It's not gonna make like the prettiest, most cohesive crust. It's totally fine. Now, if at any point you feel like your pie dough is getting too warm, you can just stick it in the fridge. Take the overhang and fold it under. So you just fold it under, fold it under, fold it under. Now I'm gonna crimp. So basically I take my forefinger and my thumb, and then I take the forefinger on the other one, and I just like make little indentations all the way around. And this is also anchoring that crust to the rim of the pie plate. So as much as it is pretty, it's also for a reason. Now that this is nice and crimped all the way around, this is what's called docking the dough. It's creating little like ventilation points in the bottom of this. I also like to make small little docking indentations along the wall. I find that that just kind of helps it maintain its shape too. My dough is nice and docked. She's gotta go in the freezer though. She's a little too warm. All right, she's gorgeous, she's frozen, she's ready to be par-baked. I like to bake all of my pies on a sheet tray. If it's an especially drippy pie, you can line your sheet tray with aluminum foil. I always do this so that your butter doesn't seep out, make it smoky in your oven, all that good stuff. So what we're gonna do now is something called par baking. You want it to be crisp underneath and not soggy. I found that foil, for me, helped it maintain its shape a little bit better rather than parchment. What I do is I crisscross 2 layers of foil. I wanna make sure that the foil is coming into solid contact with my pie dough. I'm filling this with dried beans. This is in order to help the pie shell keep its shape. You can use grains of rice that haven't been cooked. I invested in these things called ceramic pie weights, which are just little ceramic beads, really helpful, but the really annoying thing is when you order these ceramic pie weights, there really aren't enough of them to fill a full pie shell. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put this in a really hot oven for about 20 minutes, and then I'm going to take these pie weights and the foil out, and then you continue to bake it at a lower temperature, 350 in this case, for another about 20 minutes so that it starts to brown. And it feels nice. It's like very matte, but also really golden brown. It looks like a toasted saltine. So I'm just gonna let this cool completely while I get started on the curd for the pie. If you like tart, if you like lemon meringue, this is absolutely the pie for you. The first step is to make the curd. Whatever citrus you can find. And now I need a total of 1 cup of citrus juice. I love oranges. A really lovely thing to do during the holidays is boil this, little water, cinnamon stick, cloves, perfumes your whole house. It's gorgeous. My mom does that every year. This was gonna be a good one. One for the chef. Ooh. So now I'm just gonna mix everything together. I am gonna put my sugar in here first. I just like to do this because the abrasiveness of the sugar kind of extracts some of those really nice citrus oils. I've got 5 yolks in here, 2 whole eggs. Now I'm gonna go in with my juice, a little bit of salt. Okay, put it over like a medium heat. I'm gonna switch from the whisk to a wooden spoon, and I'm gonna use it as an indicator for when this is done. Definitely not looking for this to boil, so you wanna just take it to that kind of like nappe. Nappe is when you've got something that coats basically the back of the spoon, and you can run your finger through it. That's exactly what I'm looking for. I did this a couple times without straining it because I was like, meh, you know, like strain it, please. The bits of overcooked egg really could cause it to curdle in the oven, and it will also create for a more even bake. So you will be discarding a lot of the zest. At this point, the zest, especially because you rubbed in that sugar, it's kind of done its job. Pour this into my prepared crust. Every part of me wants to go over there and get a spatula. I don't want a third tool because people are gonna be like, you used how many tools? But then they're also gonna say, you wasted so much curd. I'm gonna get a spatula. I do not have a dishwasher at home, but here we have a really nice high-powered dishwasher. This one I do bake on the bottom third. Now is actually a good time, while it's in the oven, to make the cranberry sauce. I was only able to find frozen cranberries, totally fine. I need a tablespoon of zest and a ½ cup of juice. Set this over like a medium-high-ish heat and bring the cranberries to a boil. So after I brought this to a boil, I did turn it down to a medium-low. This is like now what I would call a rapid simmer. So once they start to burst, I know that I'm about there. So this is good. It's like a very loose jam consistency. I'm gonna strain it while it's hot because I don't want it to start to set up. Make sure that there are no solids in there, and it will look super liquid right now. I'm gonna let this cool and then cover it. Comes down to temperature. I'm gonna check on the pie. It's been about 20 minutes. We'll see where it's at. Oh yeah, that looks good. If I like very gently wrap it, you see the center jiggles? That is what I'm looking for. So I'm gonna let this cool completely at room temperature, and then I'm going to refrigerate it so that it is completely chilled all the way through before we top it with our meringue. It's a very Glinda meringue for the wicked fans among us. So we're making a Swiss meringue. You're combining your eggs and your sugar, and you're kind of cooking those very, very gently in a double boiler. So a double boiler is a bowl set over a pot of simmering water. As I move and whisk the eggs around in here, it's gonna be slowly bringing the eggs up without cooking them to like a curdle. Basically just be constantly whisking this. But you do wanna make sure that you're getting this sugar that's built up on the side down into here. Add my salt. All right, we're at 151, 2, 3, 4, 5, yes. Take a little bit, and I can feel that there's no grittiness between my fingers. Feeling really is kind of your North Star when you're in the kitchen. Transfer this to the bowl of my stand mixer. Whip this. We definitely want stiff peaks for our meringue here. It's basically like we're making marshmallow fluff. That is what we're looking for. That is a stiff peak. It almost looks like Frozone in The Incredibles when he freezes someone and all the like ice crystals are like, anyway. I'm gonna add half of my cranberry. So I've got my chilled citrus curd pie here. You can see in a stand mixer, not everything gets nice and incorporated all the time, so I wanna make sure that I'm getting that, and then I'm gonna go in and basically streak this in there. Go with a gentle folding motion, pile it a little evenly. Add a little bit more to this. And I love seeing those like ruby streaks. So I'm just gonna take the back of a spoon and start to make some cute little divots and peaks and indentations. Done. We're almost done with this. I'm gonna let this chill, torch it, and eat it. I know we had brat summer, but I'm feeling like we're gonna have a pretty bratty Thanksgiving too. I was listening to Apple this morning. I know that this part, oh, I forgot about that part. If I'm gonna be really honest with y'all, I never loved apple pie. I kind of tinkered with a few different pie recipes, and then we kind of landed on this one because it brought in a fruity element, like this kind of bright ruby red element. There is a nice woven lattice on the top. Gets sprinkled with a little cardamom sugar. The first thing that we gotta do is peel and core our apples, which is honestly one of the worst culinary tasks. I always feel like I need to do one long strip. Here we go. Oh no! And cut these into 1/4 inch slices. This apple is not rotten down to the core, which is good. So this is kind of what I'm looking for here. All right. And that's kind of all I have to say. Yes, please. Yeah, perfect. You can't spell community without unity.
There's no I in P.
But there is an I in pie. Done. I'm gonna add my sugar, and I'm gonna thicken this up with some cornstarch. Cornstarch is one of those things that can get really clumpy, so the abrasiveness of the sugar helps kind of break up the clumps of the cornstarch. I'm gonna put that off to the side really quickly while I get my lemons prepped and my ginger. I feel like ginger and apples and cardamom just all work super, super well together. I don't have any cinnamon or any other spices in here. I just feel like it doesn't really need it. And I'm gonna go in with my pomegranate juice, kosher salt, and then in with my cardamom. I'm just gonna give this all a good mix. So I'm just gonna start to reduce this for a little bit, and I'm gonna cook these down for 5 to 7 minutes. Stir to coat all of my apples in that nice kind of pomegranate jelly that you just made. I'm just looking for them to start to soften a little bit. The knife goes in with a little bit of resistance, but you can tell that it's still really soft. I need to cool this completely before I put it into my pie. What I can do to try to speed that process along is spread this out in as thin a layer as possible. Increasing the surface area is gonna help whatever you have cool faster. I'm just gonna let this cool completely, and then I'm gonna assemble my pie. This is a double crust pie, meaning that there is crust on the bottom and crust on top. I'm gonna fill it and then do a lattice. Okay, so I've worked this dough into my pie plate. It is getting a little warm right now, so I'm just gonna stick it in the fridge while I roll out my other dough. This one I really wanna roll out. I wanna be able to get 8 strips. Using a ruler is very helpful for this. I'm just gonna go through and I'm kind of marking, maybe I'll go 1.25 inches. Let's see. So I should get about 8 strips here. So my filling is cool. You do want it to be pretty cold. Okay. Because there's cardamom in the actual pie filling, I'm also gonna mix some of the sanding sugar with some cardamom. And when this bakes up, it smells so lovely. I drop stuff literally all the time. I'm gonna take one of the strips and just lay it across. We are going to fold this over and then crimp it, but you just don't want a really thick layer of crust. So I always just start by taking a little bit off. And I'm gonna space it probably a 1/4 inch apart so that I can get 4 strips. Trim that. If you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm going to take every other strip and fold them up. So this is why we wanted our dough to be cold but not too cold. We don't wanna rip it. I should be able to fit 4. Perfect. Take these 2 strips and you fold them back over. So you take these 2 strips, fold them up. I'll do this one. These 2, and then this one. Okay. Alrighty. And then I can use this kind of Franken piece. So I've got my lattice here with my nice thick strips, and I basically want to go and kind of trim. You don't want too much dough there because you really aren't looking for a big overhang. Fold it in on itself like this, and then I'm gonna crimp it like I did before. Ugh, I just love how homey that lattice looks. Okay, so that looks lovely, and I'm just going all over, but I definitely don't want it to seep into my filling. And then I'm gonna go along the edges here. And I want to make sure that I kind of get everywhere. So I'm going to put it on a baking sheet before I sprinkle it. It's going to be so sparkly and fun. And that heavy cream just really helps it stick. Perfect. There is going to be some bubblage that probably happens while it's in the oven. I'm going to tap this out and line this sheet tray with foil while my pie just kind of sets back up in the fridge for like 10 minutes. That looks so good. Oh my God. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, she's cooked. This looks fabulous. I'm just gonna let this cool completely, and that's honestly gonna take a few hours, which is gonna be tough, but it's necessary for slicing. This is pumpkin pie. Pumpkin pie is one of those things, no matter how hard people tried, I think it was always kind of the same. So this is a sesame-swirled pumpkin pie. It's a little toasty, it's a little nutty. I've got my par-baked pie crust. I mean, really pumpkin pie is like a pumpkin custard, so I love the addition of yolks in there because it helps make it a little bit more custardy. I'm gonna just kind of start to break this up a little bit. Obviously, pumpkin, heavy cream for a little luxuriousness. So this is kind of like your base. It is your standard pumpkin custard. It does not really have any flavor to it other than sugar. I like to add a little bit of black pepper just to add more of that kind of savory note. Ginger, cinnamon, nutmeg, a little bit of vanilla. But we're gonna level it up a little bit with some toasted sesame oil. I'm just gonna mix this up. I've got tahini and a little bit of sugar. Add just a little pinch of salt to my tahini. And then this is just a tablespoon of sugar. Mix that up. All right. So I take about 3/4 of this filling, then start to layer in the tahini, probably about half of it, and then you can go in with a swirl. So the reason I do this is so that you get a little bit more tahini throughout the pie. I felt like when I just added all of the tahini on top, the color of the pie was very tahini rather than orange. The rest of my pumpkin, then I'm gonna go back in with the rest of the tahini. You can go swirls, you can go whatever shape your heart desires. I usually go through, just do some nice swirls. Kind of a little spider webby action going on there. Now I'm gonna put this in the oven on the lower rack for 35 to 40 minutes. It's gonna start to look a little bit puffed on the sides. The center will still be wobbly. If you overbake it, you do run the risk of it cracking. We are also going to cool this in the oven. Since it puffs up a little bit, if it cools too quickly, you also run the risk of it cracking. I will say, Sometimes it cracks, sometimes it does not. All of the time it is delicious. I do have a tiny bit of separation, a little bit of cracking. I'm not really worried about it, to be honest with you. Right now it's still a little bit warm. I'm gonna cool it to room temperature before I put it in the refrigerator to chill for at least, 4 hours, if not overnight. Envisioning some really cool graphic text, bourbon, buttermilk, maple, chess pie. Can we do that?
Yes.
This one probably truly is the one that I eat the most. This pie tastes like pancakes and coffee. Bourbon, buttermilk, maple, chess pie is topped with that's that me espresso whipped cream. By the time this comes out, it's already pretty much dead. You get that nice coffee note, and it's also super easy. It's literally just mixing all of these things. Let's get started. It's just your eggs. I don't have that much sugar in there. Maple syrup is sweeter than your traditional granulated sugar. That is the predominant flavor of this pie. I would get a good one. I've got some buttermilk here, some salt. It's just a tablespoon of bourbon. And if you don't want to use bourbon, use vanilla. It'll be great anyway. But the bourbon really just kind of adds that little Mix this up. Also, in here is gonna be some butter that has been melted and cooled. So cornmeal is very traditional in your southern chess pie. Just mix it really well. Now you'll see some bubbles at the top. They will pop. It is fine. Should we torch it? Whoa. Was that necessary? No, but was it fun? Yes. I feel like I'm in a Pilates class. We're gonna do 35 to 40 minutes. You're basically just looking for the top to be a kind of a burnished brown. Oh, holy Moses, I think she's ready. They'll settle into a flat layer for you to be able to put your whipped cream on top. It's just kind of the nature of this pie. It almost souffles up on the side and then settles flat. My friends are coming soon. We have to finish the pies. This is the espresso whipped cream for the bourbon buttermilk maple chess pie, which I think just really sends us over the edge. Truly makes it taste like pancakes and coffee. I love it. Just very cold, heavy cream. Needed to be cold so that it'll whip up nicely. My powdered sugar. This is instant espresso and just a little pinch of salt. Start it slow to get it all incorporated. Then go fast, finish it off. Okay, so I can see that I'm holding the lines of the whisk, which is a good sign. And I think I've got some nice medium stiff peaks. Dollop it on top and swirl it around. Offset spatula. I'm doing this pretty gently because it's whipped cream and I don't want it to deflate on me. So I'll take my spatula. It's pretty mesmerizing. Ooh, you're getting very sleepy. I really want these pies to be bright and happy. Candied orange peel to me always just represents the holidays really well. I think it's fine. Trade this one out for this one. Sure. No? All right, we're good. I hate it. I hate it. I could keep going for days. We gotta go. We gotta go. We gotta go. My friends are coming. I'm gonna take these off, but this is ready to eat. The salted coconut caramel tart. This one could be my favorite one. Affectionately known as the Samoa tart because it is like the Girl Scout cookie. So the first thing that we gotta do is make the dough for it, which is a chocolate pâte sucrée. It really is shortbread on the bottom. Frangipane, which is essentially just blondie texture. Toasted coconut, caramel, drizzled with chocolate, flaky salt. It's really, really good. So it all starts with the chocolate dough. You can do this by hand. I make it in a food processor just because I have it. It's more cleanup, but less active work with my hands. Some Dutch processed cocoa. Powdered sugar is basically sugar that's been processed with a little bit of cornstarch. It adds the sweetness, but it also keeps it really tender. Just a little bit of salt. So I'm just gonna pulse this just to kind of get it all incorporated, but try to get all those lumps out of there too. Yeah. Ooh. Now I've got some cubed, cold, unsalted butter here. Got to try a little tenderness. Okay, so I'm gonna just pulse this a few times. You're basically coating the butter in that flour mixture. All right, so now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna beat my egg with a little bit of vanilla, put that in there. And now I'm just gonna pulse till it forms that ball around the blade. That was basically it. Let's make sure. Alrighty. It's good. It's okay that there's little tiny floury bits just from the top of my food processor. And just kind of like I did with the pie dough, wrap it. It's so much easier to roll something out when you basically start with the shape that you want it to be in already. Gently roll it into the edges, also like I did with the pie dough, just to kind of keep it very even. Chill this at least 30 minutes up to overnight. The firmer it is though, the easier it's gonna be to roll out. Okay, so my tart dough is chilled for a little bit. It's definitely firmed up. It's still pretty pliable though, which is nice. Oh, hello. This rolls out like super easy. You don't have to be as delicate with it, but I do wanna make sure that I have a nicely floured surface, and I'm gonna flour both sides of this. Flour my rolling pin. You can kind of keep it moving, also like the pie dough. Make your little quarter turns here and there. I'm again looking for kind of like a 12-inch round here, like I did with the pie dough. And it is kind of delicate, but again, like I said, it's like not the most precious thing. I just find it's easier for me to get a more even tart if I do press it like this. My dough is really warm at this point. I'm gonna freeze it without it trimmed so that it makes for a cleaner trim. When it's frozen, it'll be much, much sharper. Okay, I start by trimming maybe halfway along the lip, and then that way I can always trim a little bit more if I need to. I wanna make sure it's all cleaned up around the edges too, because these little bits that are left behind can burn. These scraps, I mean, this is basically like delicious chocolate dough. And you can roll this out again and make little chocolate biscuits, chocolate cookies. A chocolate biscuit. Now, if you really wanted to, you could go along the edge and trim it flush, which is what I'm gonna do here. So I just take the knife parallel with the rim, and this creates that really flush edge. Do the same thing I did with the pie dough, just making sure it has that little room to breathe. Bake this on a rim baking sheet for about 15 minutes, just until it starts to look a little bit more mattified. Wow, I am exhausted. We're rocking and rolling, we're almost there. My tart crust is cool. What is cool is that you can take it out. The frangipane sounds like a fancy, scary word, but it's truly so easy. Softened butter. Add my sugar, my salt. Basically, you're just throwing this all together and mixing it up. I feel like Zoolander. The files are in the computer. You could also do this with a wooden spoon. What? Oh my gosh. Whoa, whoa. How high does it go? Well, I don't want to test it yet. Add my egg one at a time. Oh, which one's gonna go? Which one's gonna go? Whoa. This thing's got a lot of giddy up. So fun. Eyeball it. My almond flour, toasted coconut, and my flour. I'm just gonna mix to combine. Whoa. I'm gonna go ahead and fill my shell with the frangipane. Just use an offset spatula to get this in an even layer. This is gonna go back in the oven for about 20 to 25 minutes, just until the frangipane is kind of baked through. You think you just fell from a coconut tree? Okay. We're at the last stage of our coconut caramel tart. We gotta make the toasted coconut caramel. You can make a caramel, I promise you. It's not difficult, you do not need to be scared. Repeat after me, I can make a caramel. I'm gonna do what's called a wet caramel. So I'm basically starting with sugar and a little bit of water. Set that over probably like a medium-ish heat right now just to get the sugar dissolving. I'm gonna continue to stir it right until the sugar is dissolved because I don't want my sugar to crystallize. So I have a measuring cup of water and a brush here. So if I see any bits of sugar along the side, I am gonna go and brush it down. You'll know the sugar's dissolved when it's pretty clear. I am gonna stop stirring it. You really just wanna swirl it so that you don't get like really dark bits of caramel on one part and then light bits on another. My sugar is all dissolved. These bubbles are essentially pretty rapid right now because it's driving off a lot of that water. You can see around the edges of the pan here, I'm starting to get more of that golden color. I think I'm about ready to add my coconut milk, and I'm gonna go ahead and stop the cooking by adding my coconut. It will bubble very vigorously. That is okay. And I just really want to cook it down so it reduces even more. I want this to be at that chewy stage. So if you have a candy thermometer, 250 is what's considered the softball stage. So I'm at 250. You can see that the bubbles have started to slow down a little bit, become a little bit more viscous. And now I'm gonna add my butter, my salt, and my toasted coconut. And this really just helps stop the cooking even further. Oh my goodness. The addition of the toasted coconut in there makes it smell truly so good. Let it hang out for another few minutes and then I'm gonna pour it over the tart that I made earlier. Forgot the vanilla, but no worries. Cool. Oh, it already smells like the Girl Scout cookie. We're filming this in Virgo season and I wanna make sure it looks really pristine. So you can see it's still really spreadable. It's almost like a frosting. My chocolate dough wasn't perfect, but this kind of hides everything. Okay. I think I'm gonna live a little dangerously and try to take this out. Everybody's looking at me like I shouldn't do it. I think it's gonna slide right on out. Now I'm just gonna drizzle some melted chocolate on it, sprinkle it with a little flaky salt. I'm gonna blitz this in the microwave just to melt it. You don't want it to seize, so just go in short bursts and stir every few seconds. I think I'm gonna stop. Again, I probably need to stop. Okay, while the chocolate is still melty, sprinkle it with some salt. All right, now I'm gonna let it set up while we finish the rest of our pies before the Pie-Stravaganza. I'm taking you to Flavor Town with this one. Guy Fieri would love it. This is the salted butterscotch banana cream pie. We're gonna start with the crust, which is vanilla wafers, crushed up, and a 1/4 cup of sugar there. It does need the good bit of salt, especially with the butterscotch pudding. Like, I wanna flavor this pie basically throughout. My sugar was a little lumpy, so I just wanna kinda get some of those lumps out of there. And then now I'm gonna add the butter and my chopped pistachios. Wow, those are really green pistachios. Get it nice and mixed up. And this is perfect sandcastle consistency. I do this anytime I'm making any sort of crumb cracker crust. Even it out, and then working from the middle outward, make sure that I'm fairly even. And then I take the flat edge of a measuring cup. You just start pressing that crust. Working your way concentrically outward. You want this crust to be pretty sturdy. I like my crust like I like my men, even and sturdy. I don't think that makes any sense. You can see that it's a little thick right now along the walls. Once I get the bottom to be a compact surface, that's when I'm gonna go back in and really get those sides nice and squished in. You can see when I did this, that this part right here was not very compact, so I didn't do a great job. It seems like I'm pretty good all the way around. So now I'm just gonna freeze this for about 15 minutes because that's gonna help it maintain its shape. And this only bakes for like 15 minutes. It's really just to start to set it. Ooh. I smell a teaching moment. All right, so I don't know if my crust was completely cool enough before I put it in there, but also this is a non-stick pan because we were running low on resources here. I wouldn't typically do it in a non-stick pan. I would do it in just a regular metal pan or even a glass pie plate. If it does slump, it's not a big deal. You can press it back up. Just be gentle with it or else you'll start to break it. All right, so this is going to be just a really simple butterscotch pudding, dark brown sugar, a little bit of water, a medium-high heat. So I'm seeing these bubbles right now. Once I start to see them slow down, that's when I know I'm pretty much at where I want to be. So I'm gonna add a mixture of heavy cream and milk, and it may sputter up at you, it may not. And then I've got my milk. Whisk all that in to combine. If you get any bits of hardened brown sugar in there, that's totally okay. They will dissolve. So essentially what I'm doing here is I'm just bringing this milk up to a simmer. You do not want to boil the milk at this point. While that's going, I'm gonna add my cornstarch to my egg yolks. Boo! It'll look like a paste at first and then it'll start to thin out. And this is basically what's gonna thicken our pudding. If I went ahead and added this to my pudding mixture right now, I would have scrambled eggs, right? What I'm gonna do is something called tempering, which basically means adding your hot liquid to something that's more room temperature in order to slowly bring it up to temperature. You do wanna stir fairly constantly while you're doing this. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm going to take this and I'm gonna add it back into my pudding while stirring. So now I'm gonna turn my pot back up to a more medium-high heat. And basically what I'm looking for here is for really big bubbles. Shrek's swamp bubbles. Once it's thick enough to hold the lines of the whisk, that is when I switch to the spatula, because the spatula is also gonna help me get into those corners that are kind of pesky. So I'm getting those nice big bubbles. Add softened butter. You could also add vanilla extract, but I love that rum flavor with the bananas, and some salt. Setting that off to the side. So now I've got my crust, which is nice and cooled. So I'm going to layer. I mean, you don't have to be like super precious with it. Slippery little suckers. Layer some, overlap some, and I'm gonna reserve some for the top as well. And basically you just wanna cover the bottom. All right, so I've got my bananas layered in there. Give your pudding a little bit of a stir, and I'm going to pour hot pudding over the bananas. Top it with the rest of the bananas. Just kind of like tessellate them in there. And you can see the pudding is already starting to set up, which is great. Cover this loosely, just so that the skin doesn't form. Cool for 30 minutes at room temp, and then chill it completely for at least 4 hours, if not overnight. It looks really good. This is a stabilized whipped cream, which basically means like whipped cream with some other kind of fat in there. I chose to do creme fraiche. You can do creme fraiche, you can do sour cream, anything that's a little tangy, honestly, because I like how that tang cuts through a lot of the sweetness. Start on low just to get everything going. And then I'll increase the speed. Okay. I think at this point I'm gonna add a little bit of flavoring. You could either add vanilla, or since I used rum in the pie itself, I am gonna just add a tiny bit of rum and then a little pinch of salt. All right. So for piping, I do like to take it to just about stiff peaks, so let's see. Yeah, that's pretty much there. I just want it to be stable enough for me to pipe. This is just for like, you know, for funsies. And just make squiggles, because it's fun, why not? This is like up to artistic interpretation. Just one layer down below and just kind of like filling it in wherever it'll have me go in different directions. Because that butterscotch is so rich and sweet, I really like how that creme fraiche kind of cuts through it. Under pressure, maybe not my best work, but that's okay. So I'm gonna top it with these beautiful bright green pistachios. And you've got your butterscotch banana cream pie with pistachios. This is gonna just go back and chill till our Pie-Stravaganza. Got a nice little ball of champers. Everyone's here, the pies are out. I'm so excited. I'm actually like getting a little emotional. I'm really just like, this is so exciting. Okay, friends. You look fabulous.
Oh, thank you.
I am so excited. All right, everybody, come enjoy some pies. Here's to you all for coming. Woo! A little champagne for you. Cheers. Cheers. I'm gonna slice the pie. Y'all are gonna have to try all of them.
Thank you.
You got the first slice.
This is incredible.
You like that one? I tried with vodka, but then I decided apple cider vinegar. More bubbles too, so enjoy. Everybody, thank you so much for coming to enjoy the pie. Hey, if you want the recipes, where do you go?
Cooking, baby.
Hell yeah, mama. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Yay. You deserve a slice.